The new generation of ground effect cars will not be susceptible to the porpoising effects when Formula 1 resumes for the second half of the season, because the FIA has implemented the new aerodynamic oscillation meter and the Flexi floor restrictions. Would this affect the performance of F1 teams in the second half of the season? Let's find out. Stay tuned. The reintroduction of ground effects in Grand Prix machinery due to new technical requirements for 2020 caused a number of teams to experience porpoising, a type of aerodynamic stalling. At the beginning of the season, the bouncing was a familiar sight as teams attempted to find a solution to the problem without sacrificing ride height and, consequently, performance. After Lewis Hamilton had a back injury and Pierre Gasly went for an MIR scan due to the severity of the phenomenon in Baku, there were calls made around the time of the Azerbaijan Grand Prix for modifications to be done. In response, the FIA has introduced a new rule that will take effect during the second half of the season. At the Belgian Grand Prix, Technical Directive 39 will finally become operational to impose rigorous constraints on the flexibility and wear of floor planks. The F1 team capitalized on this early in the 2022 season to enhance the load that was generated by the floor, which resulted in major performance improvements. The World Motorsport Council passed new rules that primarily specify the methods used to check the level of wear to the board at the end of a race. The fundamental aspects of the plank flexibility test have not changed. The car is still supported by 3 supports with a diameter of 70 mm while it is hanging in relation to the verification holes, the position of which is determined by the regulations. The corresponding distortion can't be greater than 2 mm. According to the new processes that the FIA has implemented, it appears that certain teams have been using planks that have a discontinuous density and flexibility along the entire length. The new regulation mandates that the float height of the diffuser must also be increased, as well as the diffuser edge stiffness, and that an additional sensor must be put in order to monitor oscillations. This new regulation may significantly impact Red Bull and Ferrari, since the Flexi floor is anticipated to have provided both teams with a performance benefit throughout the current season. Due to the fact that the Mercedes upper body aero concept was substantially different from those of Red Bull and Ferrari, its larger section of exposed floor was effectively a cantilever, making it significantly more difficult to control. Later, it became clear that there were limitations in the mechanical parts of the suspension when it came to adjusting the car's ride. It was soon made evident that Ferrari and Red Bull had interpreted the laws regarding the attachment of the underfloor plank differently. Because of this, they allowed the plank to sink lower into the floor as it struck the ground, which provided a cushioning effect for the ride. This is the major reason behind the incredible speed that Ferrari and Red Bulls have displayed this season. This interpretation will no longer be regarded as valid beginning with the Spa this coming weekend. As a direct consequence of this, the teams now in the lead have voiced significant opposition to a regulation change. Ferrari and Red Bull argued that it was too late in the season to implement a metric and that the change would favour Mercedes while penalising teams that got rid of their bouncing difficulties early in the season. They believed that the adjustment would benefit Mercedes the most. The boss of Red Bull, Christian Horner, mentioned that porpoising was not observed in the most recent new races. According to the former British driver, there was no need for a revision in the regulations regarding safety. Despite the fact that Red Bull and Ferrari have expressed their anger about the TD being introduced, both teams have been certain that the floor alterations won't impact their performance. This is what the Red Bull team boss said. A compromise needs to be found, but it's a little bit of a tricky one because that regulation change is massive. It changes the whole concept of aerodynamics, and it's tricky for the FIA because where do you draw the line? While there is a safety obligation of the FIA to look into, where does that line stop? Do we need to seek permission to go from slicks to wet or wet to slicks? If we hit a curb or not? You've got to be very careful about the unintended consequences of these things. Horner sounded confident in an interview conducted after an agreement had been reached to raise the ride height by 15mm. He said at the time, 15mm is not as good as leaving it alone, but it's not as bad as the 25mm that was originally suggested. It's a compromise that we're just going to have to incorporate for next year. We'll just have to deal with it and find a solution. That's what we've been good at over the years, and we'll just have to do that with this challenge. Meanwhile, Mercedes has fully supported the FIA's new regulation. They have supported the Flexi floor rules and feel that the speed advantage enjoyed by Red Bull and Ferrari is due to the loophole in the rules. In a recent interview, Mercedes young driver George Russell discussed the team's strategies for the upcoming race in Spa, which will take place after the summer break. The Briton speculated that Spa would be an exciting race because the new regulations would help improve Mercedes' performance. Mercedes would be very happy about the new regulation, or what do you think? It is expected though that they have been through a lot this season. Russell was very confident that Red Bull and Ferrari would try to push the limits of the regulations. The Silver Arrows had shown respect for the law's intentions by pointing out that there was no assurance that the modification would benefit Mercedes. Mercedes still needs to keep pushing to compete with the two teams in the championship lead. In both France and Hungary, Russell finished in second place, almost 10 seconds behind Red Bull. Even though Mercedes has made a lot of progress recently, as evidenced by their 2 double podium finishes in the most recent 2 races, they still have a long way to go before they can claim their first win of the season. After displaying impressive speed in his W13, Russell captured the pole position in Hungary. However, he was forced to finish in 3rd place since his tyre strategy caused him to fall behind during the race. The fact that the car's single lap time decreased indicates that Mercedes is making progress, which is good. They have spent the entire season trailing behind Red Bull and Ferrari in the standings. The driver for Mercedes expressed a great deal of enthusiasm towards the second half of the season. George felt certain that Mercedes was making headway in her endeavours. He believed that if the group continued in the same direction, they would unquestionably be in the running for their very first victory. In his conclusion, Russell concluded, "We have a lot of confidence in ourselves and faith that we are doing a great job. There is no reason we can't be in the mix." The fact that Russell was able to secure pole position in Budapest was encouraging, given that the gap in performance throughout the season has been wider over the course of a single lap. Russell went into the break with revitalised optimism for the remaining 9 races of the season due to Hamilton's performance in Hungary, which saw Hamilton finish in 2nd place ahead of Russell, who finished in 3rd. He said, "There is no doubt we are making progress. If we can continue on that path, we will definitely be in the hunt. We have a lot of confidence in ourselves and faith that we are doing a great job. There is no reason we can't be in the mix." Therefore, the Spa TD has the potential to assist Mercedes in closing the gap to the leading pack, but the team will likely need additional improvement in order to compete on an even playing field with Ferrari and Red Bull. What's your thought about the new FIA regulation? Would this regulation affect performance of Red Bull and Ferrari? Let us know in the comment section below. That will be all for today's video. Thanks for staying tuned. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and notification bell so that you can always get to watch more amazing videos like this. See you in the next video. Bye!